So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to my iPhone 14 Pro 6 months later video. Now in this episode, I want to share with you everything I learned about this phone after owning it for 6 months. Now this hasn't become my main daily driver iPhone, and I haven't used it as my main iPhone for the past 6 months, so I want to be very honest with you there. I've been using it as a camera phone, as a side phone when the iPhone 14 Pro Max becomes too big, but it hasn't been my main, but I still have plenty of experience with you, and I want to give you my perspective on it now that we're 6 months into this phone being launched. So let's talk about the body and the build. First of all, what I really appreciate about the iPhone 14 Pro is its size. It feels much more comfortable in the hand than the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which quite honestly feels like a brick. And this is kind of a similar reason why I love the Galaxy S23, is because of how good this feels in the hand. Now this one is a little less comfortable than the S23 because it weighs quite a bit more. It actually comes in right around 200-ish grams on here, 206 on this one to be exact. So it's not the lightest phone out there. But what it does retain is a very premium build. You'll find yourself a very nice stainless steel edge, and while those camera bumps are pretty thick, it still makes up for it by having a really premium feel. You'll see right there on those camera bumps, you do see those nice chrome or those stainless steel edges around the camera housings, which I think make it look really premium. And then on the back here, you'll find yourself the etched glass over here, and on the sides, you'll see some fingerprints do collect on the phone itself. But on the whole, I do think you have yourself probably one of the most premium phones on the market today, even though we're 6 months in. So you still don't see many phone makers bringing the stainless steel. You'll see more of a polished aluminum on most competitors. So still feels quite nice, to be honest with you. Now, I also want to talk about the display here for the phone, because the display is something that really feels a little bit different these days, and that's mostly due to the dynamic island up there. Now, I still find this to be more distracting than even a notch, because as you'll see, the display right there is actually visible, but then the dynamic island's right there. So I actually find myself looking at that quite a bit. Even though I've had the 6 months, I've gotten used to it being there, but my eye still gravitates towards it. So it's never going to be like a full screen. It's not even going to be like a punch hole. Honestly, it's really distracting, I would say, if you're someone who likes to really consume media in the full screen. If you don't, and you're just using it in portrait all day like this, just opening up applications and stuff, you're not going to have a problem whatsoever with this phone at all. Now, the display is also very bright, which is something I do love about the iPhone 14 Pro series. They get incredibly bright, and they do have a wide range of brightness as well. In addition to that, you'll find yourself dark mode, night shift, true tone, which we've had for a while. But what you really got to do sometimes, because this display is so bright, is that you got to go over here to accessibility sometimes, at nighttime specifically, go into the display and text size, and I actually have to reduce the white point at nighttime. That's how bright this display gets. It's actually too bright, honestly. And being OLED, it does have some PWM. It's some of the lowest out there, but it still does have some. So in order to fix that, you do want to go to reduce white point, put it around 50, put your brightness around here, and you should be able to get rid of that. So I found myself doing that quite a bit. Also, I want to mention about the display, you still get really good sharpness. So if you are reading articles and stuff, whatever you're reading, whatever you're doing, you are going to find yourself seeing some pretty sharp text on this phone. You don't come with no 1080p display here. This is going to be well over 460 pixels per inch at 2556 by 1179. So I do find it to be nice that you have a sharper panel than some other phones out there. I'm talking to you, Samsung Galaxy S23. It's a very sharp panel. And you'll notice this display does have very thin bezels right there, but I think Apple's going to go even thinner on the upcoming iPhone 15 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro Max. So stay tuned for that upcoming phone. All in all, it's a fantastic panel. This is the only thing you'll notice a little bit, is that dynamic island does get in the way of the phone itself. So that's just something you'll notice. But I think most people will really love the display on here. It's OLED, it's bright, it's very well tuned, it's not oversaturated. It's just a beautiful display panel all around. So very happy to report that after 6 months, I still feel like this LTPO 120 hertz smooth refresh rate, 2000 nits of bright, I still feel like it's top of the line. Yes, I could mention always on display, which is not better to me than some of the Android offerings in terms of the features it has, but it's nice that you have it because when you prop this up in your car or whatever, you can see it as a clock. If you prop it up in your desk, you can see it has, the time. So I still like having always on display. It's one of those features that if you don't use it, whatever, but it's nice to have it if you do want to use it. So that's pretty good. Now, talking about the software, there's not a ton to really cover here as we kind of already very used to iOS 16 at this point. There is, upcoming updates that always bring little feature sets. We all know about all those little updates, tiny updates to come with these little updates here and there, but usually I wait until the iOS 17 or the bigger updates to do a full review on those upcoming updates, so stay tuned for that. But honestly, it's just iOS. We're used to it at this point. It has, nice focus modes. It has really clean software. I still don't like how they put all the applications down here. I think they need to clean this up. This is kind of messy, honestly. Like, why do we have all these applications when they should just be one row that says apps? It would clean up this settings menu. But, the iOS experience is, bar none, probably one of the best out there. Most people just can't get out of this sticky iMessage and FaceTime ecosystem. Not that they want to, but it's really sticky operating system here. And all these months later, I do find the iPhone 14 Pro to have some of the best software on the planet. Now, I will say that on the smaller panel, I don't find myself actually needing or really craving having a split screen. It's more so on the Max device, but I still think there's enough room to do a split screen on here as well. It's still 6.1 inch size, but I don't really find myself needing it too much on this one. I don't mind single tasking on this phone, but I still think they could bring it if they wanted to. Now, performance for this phone, you've seen in my speed tests, pretty much loses to nobody. It basically wins all the speed tests. A16, you'll find 3.46 gigahertz clock speed and 6 gigabytes of RAM. However, the next iPhones are reported to go to 8 gigabytes of RAM and a newer A17 chipset, maybe even an M series. We'll have to see what Apple decides to go with there later this year, but it's more than likely going to stick with an A series. But this phone is a rocket in speed. I don't care what you're doing. It's something that's noticeable if you're coming from something like a 12 Pro or even 11 Pro series. It's a big jump. If you had an iPhone 13 Pro Max, not really. You probably wouldn't see anything here, but it's still slightly faster than that phone as well. It's just not that noticeable. So over the long haul, I think this is going to be one of the best long haul performers once again. I mean, if the iPhone 11 can still perform well, what makes you think a 120 hertz faster CPU phone is not going to perform well? This thing is going to be a monster for many years to come. It's kind of reminding me back in the day when Apple's MacBooks would last for a very long time. I mean, they still do today. It's kind of like that. You can buy a MacBook that lasts forever. You can buy an iPhone that lasts forever. No problem here with performance. I don't care what you want to do. And I'm talking even the back doesn't get that warm. The only time I found this phone to get really warm is if I'm really pushing it and I'm charging it at the same time while I'm doing a software update in the background and I had the camera running just recently. If you're doing all that stuff, you might warm it up a little, but that's about it. I didn't see much more than that. Now, talking about the camera system here, I don't got much to show back here. There's just a tile floor, but the camera system right here is pretty incredible. Now, the front-facing camera is very good as well. You do have the ability to back it out some, and the video you can do here is 4K 60 on the front and the rear. The cinematic video has been excellent as well if you want to do some of that, blurring the background, switching subjects and stuff like that. But honestly, if you want to see all my samples, go ahead and check out my full review of this phone. I just got to say, the whole camera system in general has been just a dream to use. It's got great macro photography. It's got really excellent video quality with really no skills required. And you do have some pretty good camera applications that you can actually do some manual camera stuff. If you really want to take it to a more pro level with the iPhone, you'll find yourself plenty of applications to go ahead and do that. So there is a lot you can do, post just the phone, what it comes with. So 6 months later, it does live up to the pro name. You can do raw photography, a 48 megapixel camera. I will say the only main thing you see the raw up there, The really only main thing I miss on using this phone is I want more zoom and I want more optical zoom. 3x, is not that far, especially when you're out and about in nature, whatever, or you're out and about in, theme park, a concert, whatever, you want to zoom in on something. You just don't got the reach with that 3x like you would on a Samsung phone going up to 10x optical. So Apple needs to, I think, introduce some more zoom for this phone. Most competing Android phones can go further than this, so definitely would like that. I also want to mention that this phone does get quite pricey when you do go up to a higher storage tier. So this one right here is the 256 gig, which is not the cheapest, but when you start going to 512, you start going to 1 terabyte, this phone becomes very pricey. So I would say that, this phone is not cheap whatsoever for the storage, but at least you have a ton of storage on offer for your iPhone 14 Pro. Now also, the audio performance is also very good for this device as well, because these speakers, they didn't really skimp out on giving you a quality speaker on the bottom and the top. It really does match up similar to what you'll find on like an iPhone 14 Pro Max. So very good in that respect. We have the emergency SOS features, the crash detection, all that good stuff here. So it's another neat thing for the iPhone 14 Pro. And you also do have really good phone call quality. I did forget to mention battery life, which is one of the keys of this device. It's actually not one of the better things for the iPhone 14 Pro series in general, is the battery life. The 13 Pro and Pro Max did better than this phone in battery life. That's likely due to the higher nits of brightness while keeping a similar sized battery. So when I say not as good, I don't mean not good. I mean not as good as last year, because the iPhone 14 Pro was still able to make it through the full day for me, even with some heavier usage, but it was just a lot lower than the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max. So you do sacrifice a little with the battery life. So overall, the iPhone 14 Pro is definitely not as new as it was when it came out. A lot of phones are competing now. I think it's time for Apple to bring something new. We'll see it in September. But it's still one of the best out there. Definitely. Really great cameras, premium build. Nothing really matches this in terms of how it feels in the hand, in terms of premium feel. There is some great Samsung phones, but I think that stainless steel pushes it over the edge, still feeling a little bit more pricey, if you will. The cameras are definitely being beat by a lot of competitors, and they need to upgrade the zoom on these, but they have still have some of the best video out there. But the iPhone 14 Pro is still a recommend if you don't want to wait till September. I still think it's a great phone to pick up even right now. However, if you're the type of person who's like, it's too late, I already decided to go against that phone, just wait it out. You'll be happy you did, because the next version should be faster with better battery life and likely better cameras. We're probably going to see better zoom this year. I really hope they bring that. That's it for me, 6 months later with the iPhone 14 Pro. Definitely, if I had to give it a score, I'd give it like an 8.5 out of 10. That would be my final score for this one so far. So stay tuned for more content coming your way. Let me know what you guys want to see down below in the comments section. And if you have the 14 Pro or you plan on getting one, share your thoughts, comments, concerns. It helps others out to decide if this is going to be their next device right here. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.